Ask Mr. Jeff Seeley if he would lead us in invocation.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, look down upon all the business that's being done in the county tonight. Help us, guide us in the directions that would best suit all that are in need in this county. Look over those in foreign countries that fight for the freedom of this country. In your name we pray. Amen.
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 Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Board members present this evening is Mr. Bobby Popowitz, represents the Port Royal District. Mr. Floyd Thomas represents the Mattapanai District. Mr. Jeffrey Seeley represents the Bowling Green District. Mr. Max Roselle, the Rita Church District, and I'm Moyne Acres, and I represent the Madison District. First item on the agenda is amendments to the agenda. Mr. Ashcraft.
Mr. Chairman, I would ask the board to remove items 6 and 6A. Everything else is as presented.
Is there a motion to approve the amendment to the agenda?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Roselle, seconded by Mr. Popowitz.
Discussion?
I'm sorry?
Discussion?
Discussion.
Mr. Ashcraft, when do you expect 6A to be back on our agenda? Next board meeting?
Next board meeting, Mr. Borship.
Yes. Is it possible I could get a preliminary copy that there's a museum committee meeting next week? Sure. So if that's okay with the rest of the board, okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion? All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay, and the motion is carried. Opening board comments. Mr. Popowitz.
I have none.
Mr. Thomas.
None?
Mr. Seeley.
I guess I have one comment, Mr. Chairman. I know that we are looking at item L in the consent agenda, and I'm all for it. And what I'd like to do is challenge other board members for the annual senior gala. I know that fundraising for the Rotary has been very difficult this year with economic times, and I have written the Rotary a $500 check to be a gold sponsor. I'd like to challenge the other board members to do the same. It's a very worthy cause we've all been, and I think that it's one thing that the seniors in this community look forward to every year, and I think it's something we really need to support.
Thank you, Mr. Seeley. Mr. Roselle.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to make sure we're just tentatively let the board know that there is a committee meeting that is taking place where the county has to look at our communication system for interoperability in narrow banding, and there's a federal mandate that we'd be in compliance by 2013, meaning have new radio systems in Caroline County by 2013. Just want to make sure that the board's aware that that is in process, and that's not really an option. It's going to be a several $1 million project possibly. So I just want to make sure that the awareness is out here in front of the board.
Okay. Thank you. And I have no open board comments. The next item on the agenda is the recognition of county schools for achieving full accreditation and making adequate yearly progress. Dr. Kello, if you or your chairman would like to come forward, we have a resolution that has been approved by the board in recognition of this achievement. We'd like to present it to you, and whoever you need to, the entire board, whoever you want to come up is fine. The entire board is fine.
Not now.
as everybody is making their way up, getting positioned, I do want to say to the superintendent and certainly to the school board, the Board of Supervisors is proud of what has been accomplished and the fact that you have become fully accredited in Caroline County, have met the AYP goals of the government. We're proud of you for doing that. It means a great deal to the people of Caroline County, and mostly it means a great deal to the students of Caroline County, and so we're quite proud of you. The board would like to give you this resolution, if you would allow me to read the resolution before we present it. It's a resolution congratulating Caroline County Public Schools for achieving full accreditation and making AYP, or adequate yearly progress, for 2009-2010. Whereas the Virginia Department of Education has developed school accreditation ratings that reflect student achievement on standards of learning, assessments, and other tests in English, history, social science, mathematics, and science. And whereas all Caroline County Public Schools are fully accredited for 2009-2010. And whereas all Caroline County Public Schools also achieved adequate yearly progress, AYP, for 2009-2010 under the Federal Elementary and Secondary Education Act, also known as No Child Left Behind, which requires states to set annual measurable objectives of proficiency in reading and mathematics, participation in testing, graduation, and attendance. And whereas achieving full accreditation and making AYP are significant accomplishments that have a positive impact on every citizen of Caroline County, and send the message that Caroline County schools are on the rise. And whereas Caroline County wishes to celebrate and call attention to the achievements of our schools, now therefore be it resolved that the Caroline County Board of Supervisors hereby extends an enthusiastic congratulations to the Caroline County School Board, school administration, faculty, staff, and students for achieving this important milestone, and encourages everyone involved to keep up the good work. Adopted this 27th day of October 2009, signed by Percy Ashcraft, the clerk of the board, and myself as chairman of the board. And again, we appreciate you tremendously. I know a lot of hard work. The board here is, I'm sure over the years, have been putting in a lot of hard work, and we've talked about it from time to time. And we appreciate it. People of Caroline County is appreciative, and we want to just say thank you.
Mr. Chairman and Supervisors, we want to thank you for recognizing this and being a part of it. As you all, as I've met you and gotten to know you, we are becoming a team. And as a team together, we can really move this county forward. And we just thank you. This is a special recognition. And I personally am honored by this. And I want to also share with you, I'm very thankful for our staff, our students, our community. This is a community award. And thank you so much.
I too would just add my thank you, and I would like to ask the other educators who are in the audience to please stand. We've got some principals and Dr. Cunningham, some central office people. And I do appreciate the board and the working relationship being established. I do think we are a team. Thank you.
Y'all come forward, we'll take some pictures. Yeah, we get all that board because this is not one person. Everybody is working with us together. Let's go.
Okay, what we're going to do here, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to bring it all the way around into this corner here and find a place. And if I can move my head, then I'll move you. Once you find a place. Let's see. Okay, sir, could the glasses come forward a little bit, right there? Okay, good, right in the center here. Fellows up here, why don't you come right next to that? Okay, sir, you want to move forward? Just go up. Okay, that's good. gotta stay still, right in your place. I might have to change it a little bit after I back up here. Okay, Jeff, a little to my right. Good. Okay, Maxie. Okay, sir, with the jacket on, a little to my left. Good. There we go. All right. Okay. Nice smile right here. Back up. All right. Great, that looks good. Okay, let me get one more. All right. And one more yet, and I'll let you go. Nice smile right here. Thank you.
Next on the agenda is presentations and reports. First is the Treasurer's report. Mrs. Curran, it's good to have you with us this evening with all the great news you have.
Well,
Oh,
it's
maybe
not
so
bad
good to me.
news.
Oh, not bad news. Okay, that's good. Same as good.
Yeah, spent some time like you had asked, and I don't know, I told Fred, I said it's a lot harder than it looks to pull all the information from prior year and key it in, but we'll try to at least do this like on a quarterly basis if
That'd be great.
monthly if time permits.
That'll be.
But in looking at the numbers, it looks like the general fund, most of the categories are about the same as last year. I mean, there's some categories that, of course, are up a little. Local sales tax is over what we had received last year, but there's a one-time payment in there that I think I explained last time that had come in, and we're not, we're still waiting to see if that's going to stay here or if some other locality is going to lay claim to part of that. As far as we have gotten the real estate and personal property bills out. They were mailed a little over a week ago, and we've been getting in about $50,000 a day, so that's helping with cash flow as far as trying to, to build up some, and we'll continue to monitor that. We have not gotten the public service bills out yet. We're working on that, and that is about $950,000, I believe, in additional public service. The other, having looked at the transient occupancy taxes, look to be a little less than where we were last year comparing the same accounting period. Meals tax, though, looks up, and the proffers, we've gotten in more proffers in this quarter than we had in last year's same time frame. So we're trying to monitor the taxes, and the other categories we're still trying to do everything as far as collections that we can on the real estate and the personal. Are there any specific categories or questions that the board might have?
Yeah. Okay. No, I think that was the explanation. As I went over the packet, I noticed, some of the things you mentioned as far as the sales tax and the meals tax. We seem to be doing quite well with that, so that's good signs for us. No, but anything you can do for us to give us a comparison as to, as we move along through the year,
Right.
we can then have a chance to make decisions based on what changes we need to make, rather than waiting till the 11th hour or the last quarter to then go about making those changes. But if we see that our revenue is short you know, compared to last year at the same time, then I think this board then has to make some.
And I think the
decisions.
December, report, when we get to the end of
Right.
December, we'll have a better feel of exactly where we are compared to last year, with that first half collection basically being over with at that point.
Right.
So I think that'll be a good point to stop and look at where we are.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you, Beth, we appreciate what you do. Request for waiver of school administration building sewer connection fees.
Good evening again, Mr. Chairman and Supervisors. And I would like to request, we are having an issue at our Bowling Green Elementary site and our annex site with the septic tank and the septic field, and we would like to be able to hook onto the main tap of the sewer line there. In order to do that, it was going to cost us approximately $42,500 to just run some pipe and get that to hook in, but then there was an additional $38,500 hookup fee, and I'm here on behalf of the board to request that that fee be waived so that we can go ahead and get that hooked up. It would save us a considerable bit of money.
Okay. Questions of Dr. Keller?
I don't have any questions.
Thomas?
No, it's basically we let you have a waiver, or we give you more money for your budget, and then you pay us back,
Yeah.
which is stupid. So
Seeley?
I understand the issue.
Go ahead.
Do we know what kind of capacity we're talking about? Because isn't that part of the capacity that the county has taken from the town?
I'm sure it would be.
John, is that part of the capacity that the county has purchased from the town?
Yes, it is.
Do we have any idea how much this new will add?
We're
Or
talking in the 50,000 gallon range. It doesn't use it all up.
Okay, but I mean, so that's what, a quarter?
In that range, yes.
Okay.
How much did we commit to, or did we buy from? John,
Yes.
could you please come to the podium, please?
We gave some back for this property back here, Brookwoods or whatever.
Do you know what kind of a capacity we still have left with the town? The county has left with the town.
I would have to look that up to be sure. No, I don't have that off the top of my head.
And you're saying that the schools would use about 50,000?
That's the number that I've seen, yes.
50,000 gallons a day?
That's
year?
just based on the number of fixtures. I don't know if that's actually what will come out, but they base it on the number of fixtures. So I can forward to you the calculations for that, and also let you know how much capacity we will have remaining from the towns that we purchased.
I know there was a great deal of discussion on this board just probably last year about this very issue as far as
That's why I was
capacity.
asking.
About the capacity. I think we need to have some numbers as to what we committed to, or what they committed to us, and what amount we have used. And I think you need to get some better figures from the schools as to about with 50,000 gallons a day. Just seems like a lot of usage coming out of one school.
Well, it's coming out of the school board office, governor's school, and BGE. So it's serving about 450 people, not all of them all day, probably only 350 all day. And that's just from 8 to 4 or 8 to 3:30.
And again, the calculations that are done are based on, not necessarily on the flow, but they're based on the fixture units that are in the buildings. Count up how many toilets, how many sinks, how many different size drains, which is the way that the calculations for sizing the connections are done. But I can get you the figures on that, and also what the remaining capacity is, and get that emailed out to you.
What do you, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. My other question is to Dr., but I would like to have that, information. Dr. Kello, now, I know what Mr. Thomas says, we're either going to have to give you additional money, but my question to you is, where is the funding coming from to do the project itself? Is it coming out of your operating budget? Is it coming out of the money that was borrowed to do the?
It was coming out of the money borrowed to do this, yes, sir. And when we came, we did not come with a $70-some-odd-thousand figure. We only came with the $42,005 to do the work.
Mr. Chairman.
Do you have any idea as to what monies will be left over out of the $6.7 million that was borrowed to do renovation projects at the schools?
We're still standing at about approximately, this project's already been covered in it, but we're still sitting at about $715,000.
Let me explain to you, and again, I know what's been said, and there's certainly a lot of validity to that. But my other concern is the fact that I know that the utility fund is being subsidized by the general fund at this point now. So if we take $38,000 out of the utility fund, then that's going to be subsidized on that end. And my thoughts are, if there's money left over out of the renovation borrowed money, then it may be just as well to pay for that $38,000 out of that pot of money than it is to go look at the general fund to pull out $38,000 to subsidize the utility fund. The utility fund is going to, have to be taken care of because of that debt retirement and operations of that system as well. That's my only concern. And if the money has been borrowed for projects such as this, it may be just as well to use that money to pay for this type of service. But again, if it's not something that has to be voted on tonight, I would ask that John come back with the information that we've asked for, and maybe we can get a better handle and a better picture as to what we are truly looking at as far as what you're asking for.
And respectfully, I understand, and if we can do it in a timely, because we are sitting here with this system as we've been saying, and we can, I'm agreeing with you that we can hold, but if it's been failing us and we're continuing to have problems, we really have no facilities actually in the school board office now.
And I guess that my thought is the fact that I don't know that really stops you from doing the project, because the money will have to come from somewhere to fund the project. But I would like to see it come from the borrowed monies if we're going to have that additional monies left over at the end of the project, more so than I would rather see it coming out of the general fund to subsidize the utility fund. Okay? John, can you have information by the next board meeting?
Yes.
Okay. Jeff, you had a question?
Well, I have a couple of,
Go ahead.
I mean, I know that this is imperative, and I don't know that we have a whole lot of choice. They've got a system that's failed.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like they can go in and dig a septic system
Right.
and repair what they've got. The capacity issue is I just want us to keep track so that we're all on the same page. We know how much has been used, how much is left. I don't think it's an issue of where it goes, but this is definitely a need that needs to be addressed. I guess my second issue with the $38,000 in fees is that currently we're using connection fees for operations now. We're not really putting it in a lockbox fund for utilities. And it's one of those pay me now or pay me later kind of situations for them and for us. So it's borrowed money. Do we stretch it out and let them forgive the fees and go forward? I mean, how close are you guys to being hooked up? I mean, have you dug up the ground already? Are we?
No.
But you haven't started yet.
No.
Are we going to incur any additional cost by waiting?
Not a couple weeks now, or 3-4 weeks now.
Well, I got a smile from one and no from another, so.
He's a consultant, you gotta understand, he's the contractor for somebody, yeah, so I guess he would like to see it move along.
Well,
We need to move along right now.
The $38,000 I see may be at play, but is the work being done really at play?
And if you heard what I said, I'd never questioned as
Okay.
to whether it worked. What I questioned was where the money was going to come from. Does it come out of the borrowed funds that the board has already borrowed and paying interest on, and let that money sit there until it's all used up? To me, it makes sense to use that $38,000 to pay for this project, to pay for the connection fees as well, and we will not have to pull out of the general fund money to subsidize it. The money's already been borrowed for this project here. It's already sitting in somebody's bank, I would hope our bank account, with drawing a little bit of interest, certainly not as much as we're paying on those funds. And what I've said is, if you feel like it needs to move ahead, then move it ahead, realizing that the money may come out of the borrowed amounts.
Well, that was what I was going to request, and maybe if you wouldn't mind me changing that, would be to say, could we go ahead and, because we haven't had that money approved out of that additional money, which we said we would come to you to ask, can we do that and still ask for consideration for this waiver?
I have no problem with that.
at
And
the-
then you move along with the project.
And I guess that's my point. It makes, I know something leaking can precipitate other situations that we don't want to all be in. So I'm like, we know it's got to be done. There's not a question of whether it's going to get done or how it's going to get done or where it's going. There's no options. So I'd just like to see them move forward.
And I have no problem with that, but you, Dr. Killo, under the understanding that probably it could very well come out of your borrowed funds.
Mr. Chairman.
But certainly we'll consider the waiver and look at that. But let's just see what the comments are. Mr. Poplar.
It seems to me that, and I happen to kind of concur with Mr. Thomas, that this is really taking out of your right pocket, putting in your left pocket. And I would like us to look at, from here on out, and if with the school board would entertain this idea, that from here on out that all the schools, the utility lines belong to the county. Then we're not worried about fees and connection fees and that kind of thing, because it's all county facility then. I think that eliminates them having to come before us, having a discussion about where the money's coming from, that kind of thing, and just eliminates the whole problem altogether.
Yeah, certainly those are things that we can look at and certainly talk about as to what's going to take place. My question is, we have to pay the town so much for usage, okay, every month. Now, you're going to pay, are you paying the county or are you paying the town for that usage?
County.
You're paying the county.
Because we own the capacity, so they pay us. We pay the town whatever they bill us then, based on usage.
Mr. Roselle?
Yes.
My question is, I guess for staff, in the past, what other organizations were waived the availability?
We've actually compiled a whole list of organizations that were waived, and I can get a copy of that list to you tomorrow, basically.
I could imagine
But there's
all
a
the fire
fairly
departments,
big list.
rescue squads, we may have some of the same issues that Mr. Poplar was talking about. But at the same time, you know, we always beat up on our utility fund. Every chance, you know, some of us will beat up on our utility fund at the same time, ready to approve spending more money from it or from the utility. You know, I don't have a problem. I think it's, you know, something we can work out, not a big problem. But, I would just like to know which, in the past, to be consistent in what we're doing. It sounds like we've done this with others.
Yes,
I
I'll
think maybe
provide
they
you with
should
that
rescue
list
squad. I don't know
too.
if it was somewhere else, but it would probably help us to know where we did it before.
John, if you'll have something back to us at the next board meeting, Dr. Pillow, you can go along with, go ahead with whatever it is that you and the school board wants to do. there's a motion, is that motion on this board to go ahead and authorize them to use, what, $81,000? Is that what you asked for, or you asked for 38?
Yes, it would be, well, we could do the both just to make sure we have it covered. It was the 38,000 plus the 42, so you're correct, it's about $81,000.
$81,000 to be used from the borrowed money for renovation for the schools.
I'll make the motion that we allow the school board to move forward with the connection to the wastewater line in Bowling Green and set aside $81,000 from the borrowed funds to cover the potential cost of that.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Seeley, seconded by Mr. Popowitz, and you heard the motion. Discussion of the motion. All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The motion is carried. Thank you, Dr. Killow.
Thank you.
I believe you have one more. The next item on the agenda, I believe, is yours as well.
Right, and we had, with all the ARRA money out there, for the stimulus money, there was about $119 million that came available for loan availability to do green schools. Mr. Ashcraft called me and he was made aware of it. I've been seeing everything come through. We had the feasibility study going on, and we thought we would take a look at it and at least come to you with some proposed projects tonight. I'd like to, we have two that we would like to put forward before you for your consideration and approval, because this does have to move forward by a November 11th deadline, and to get this money and to make it available to do projects. It is related to energy efficiency with water, solar, electrical, and we felt like we had two projects that were primed for this, and this money might fit, and so we thought we'd bring those requests forward. If I could introduce Randy Jones, the architect that has been working with us. She said if you wanted to talk, then we can do it, and we can just present it.
Let's just present it.
We're going to just present it. We'll just present it. We had a PowerPoint, but we'll just go through the information with you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Supervisors. We have compiled a list of energy efficiency items for the Caroline High School project to bring to you tonight for consideration. These are competitive-based allocations for this particular program that has been put out by the governor. The competition is based on how efficient you can make your school or your facility based on the equipment that was there compared to the equipment that would be put into the school. So we're looking at basically the building envelope improvements to make the building more energy efficient from the elements on the outside, and we're also looking predominantly at the mechanical system. One of the first items that we're looking at is to replace the existing roof system. It's a ballasted roof system. The main reason for doing that is twofold. One, the roof system is definitely in need of being replaced. Second, we were able to add a substantial amount of insulation to the roof system, which will in turn reduce the amount of heat gain in the building. That also in turn will downsize the equipment that will be needed to when it's time to replace the HVAC system. So the roof and the insulation really covers a lot of the energy efficient portion of the project. The windows are also another factor that we would want to take into consideration for the envelope. We would replace those windows with high performance glazing systems, energy efficient windows, which will again reduce the amount of heat gain in the building. There's not a lot of windows on the high school, as I'm sure you're aware, but we would want to go ahead and do that while we're doing the project, just to make the envelope as energy efficient and weather tight as we can. The biggest part of the project is to replace the existing heating, ventilation, and air conditioning equipment. That equipment is part of the original building, and when that building opened back in the 70s, it's definitely not as energy efficient as it is compared to today's technology. So the new HVAC equipment will substantially improve the overall efficiency of the building, and therefore will help to in the calculations to demonstrate that we are making substantial energy improvement to the existing building. Along with that will be some electrical service upgrades. replace the existing lighting in the building. The lighting is not energy efficient compared to today's standards. The lighting also contributes substantially to the interior heat gain. So new lighting will improve the overall efficiency of the building and also reduce the heat load on the air conditioning system. When that is done, we'll also need to replace the existing ceilings throughout the school. They'll be kind of done in conjunction. We also will replace all the plumbing fixtures in the facility to make those low flow water systems. When those were installed back in the 70s, the capacity for those was much greater than it is now for low flow fixtures. We also will do some locker room upgrades as part of the overall project. There's definitely some need there. We also will reconfigure the administration and guidance area to allow for a main entrance, secure main entrance into the building, and that plays into the overall renovations that we're doing throughout the building also. And then we'll also factor in a new light and sound system in the auditorium, which again will be part of the overall renovations for the facility. The cost for the project is $9.5 million. This has been estimated. And as Dr. Keeler said, we have to provide quite a bit of information on the application form, including our engineers have to actually calculate your energy savings, the amount of BTUs that will be saved and so forth. So we are working on that piece of it in anticipation that we might be able to submit that application. Yep.
I would like to share a few other comments. Many of you, and I want to take a moment and paint a picture. We have a high school right now that is primed for a renovation. And most of the renovation is related to the topics you heard in our energy efficiency. Actually, our heating system is at a position that we're constantly having to go into repair. It's shutting down on us. The lights, if you've been in the building, are dismal in the classrooms. It's hard to see. I struggle when I'm going through in some of the classrooms and I'm looking. If you go in the bathrooms and you look at the fixtures and the toilets, they are old. There's no privacy. The locker room is in definite need of upgrade and taken care of. When we look at the office and the safety issues walking into that building, we're putting our system at risk by they don't enter in to any secure area. They come straight into the building. When we looked at this design, we were thinking, okay, we can get this done and then we know there's growth happening in the community. I mean, the high school is bigger than it was last year, and we didn't project that. We thought it might be a little bit smaller. It actually grew by 40 students. And we're thinking we can always come back and do the additions, and we did. When I talked to Randy about this, I said, we need to make sure that whatever we would do to add on in the future to expand to handle the continued growth, that this would not have to be reduplicated. We could do it, and then this could be expanded upon and not undo. It's actually a perfect timing. I know budgetary-wise, and I know I've heard the discussions amongst many of you, and I respect the position you're in. And, you know, I appreciate Mr. Ashcraft coming to me. We, tonight, as the school board, the board approved tonight that we move this forward and put it before you and one other smaller project to just see if you would take this under consideration, because this can move us way ahead and give our high school students a lot better, more efficient building. It's upgraded.
Now, this is as well as I can remember when I read the article that this stimulus money was being made available through the governor's office, and I believe he made the announcement up in Spotsylvania County. I don't remember whether it was a zero loan balance or whether it was a small percentage.
It's zero or near zero,
Right.
And with the term of 14 to 16 years for the repayment.
Okay. When I know with the literary loan fund, when that was available to localities, you had like 2 years after you finished construction before you had to start paying on the project, repaying the money. Is there some type of delay in repayment on this particular program, or is it as soon as you borrow the money you got to start paying it back, or is there a year delay in paying it back? What is the arrangements for? payback on this?
I can speak to that, Mr. Akers. We
That
have,
is
we actually, as you may be aware, the state is actually going through about 70 million of qualified school construction bonds right now for those folks that were on the waiting list for lit loans, but since the state pulled all the funding away from the lit loan program, they made the first dollars available. It's about 70 million that's being used right now, and so we've got a couple clients that are in that, and they're out about to market those bonds right now. The way it's set up, the federal government sets up the amortization schedule, as the gentleman mentioned. It's between 14 and 16 years. Each month they decide what the amortization was. For the month of September it was 14. For the month of October it's 15. So if you come to market and you sell bonds in the month of October, then you get a 15-year amortization period. It's zero or near zero, as he said, because it's a zero repayment, meaning principal only, repaid over the 15 years. What's happened is we get into the marketplace. The people who are buying these bonds are getting a tax benefit, and that benefit number is actually set by the federal government as well. And what some folks who have been in the market thus far around the country have found is that that benefit is not enough to entice the buyers. So in order to entice the buyers, you end up having to add a little bit more on top of the 0%, and that's been in the form of either a coupon, an additional coupon, if you will, maybe it's up to 1%, or you sell bonds at a discount, meaning while we are going to pay back 100 cents, we may borrow at 90 cents, or may lend at 90 cents, meaning that we're going to end up paying back a little bit more than we actually get. So in the case of, say, $10 million, you may end up borrowing $11 million, paying back $11 million, but only get $10 million in proceeds. That's to entice people to actually invest in these monies. Your question was about payback. And basically, the VPSA is acting as the pooled issuer for this program. And they've gone to the rating agencies and said, how fast can we pay these back? Because the way these bonds are sold, if you're an investor and you're going to buy a bond, you actually don't get repaid until the 15th year. You get all your money back at the very end. There's no payment like a normal bond during that period. However, we would be paying it back a little bit each year. It goes and sits in the bank, it earns interest, so that we really aren't going to pay back that full $10 million. Let's say our loan ended up being $10 million. We wouldn't pay back the entire $10 million. We actually would pay a little bit less than that because we do earn some interest over the years. But it depends on how fast you pay it back as to how much interest you earn. And the guidance that the rating agencies gave Virginia Public School Authority was, we'd like to see you pay back at least 10% in the first 5 years. So we do get a pretty significant break over the next few years. And that could mean 2 years at zero with the final 10% in years 3, 4, and 5. There was another little bit of a break in years 6 through 10, and so it could be backloaded. But we might want to look at 10% in the first 5 years and then everything else after that, the next 10. But there are a couple of different options. But I think I know you all are really focused on the next couple of years. So that's, I think that answers your question, but I'm happy to answer
I did a
more.
really good job, you should hear.
Courtney, before you go away, excuse me, it's almost zero or no, and
Right.
kind of got the example. So the debt service, we're basically going to say whatever we borrow plus maybe 10% divided by the number of years.
It could be paid back level like that.
So we could, I mean, we could.
And
like,
I've got some numbers to give you.
Oh, thank you.
We ran it just at 10% for even over the first 5 years, and then level after that. On 10 million, and there's cost of issuance associated with it because VPSA has to pay underwriters and whatnot. We put them up 1.5%. So we borrowed 10,150,000, and based on that, your repayment would be $203,000 for 5 years, and then $913,500 for the final 10 years based on 15. $913,500.
Because it's 15 years.
It's 15 years, a shorter period. So 203 even for 5 years, and then 913,500. So if we wanted to skip a couple years, then we'd be paying a little bit more in years 3, 4, and 5. That 400,000 in the first 2 years would be backloaded in years 3, 4, and 5. So, but it is simply doing the math.
So that's still going to be significantly higher than what we're used to, because most of our loans like that are 30 years, so we're basically
At
paying
least 20
Yeah.
for the schools, some 25, but that's right.
$300,000 a year probably. Well, $500,000 a year would be flat. 5 times 15, 750. 600.
If you did it even.
Yeah, it would be about 600. Yeah, 600 would get us $800. That's a lot of money in debt service. It's a lot of money in debt service. Can we multiple borrow on this? Can I borrow this? Can I borrow this $10 million? Go ahead and fix up the schools, and as I'm paying them back, convert that to VPSA in 30 years and whatnot.
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if these have a call feature to them or not. I think they do, but I don't know the penalty.
So
these are a new animal, as you can imagine.
So like a call feature would say, if I paid back, if I borrow 10 million, in the first 5 years I pay back $1 million, but then I can find a better rate for that other 9 million, they're going to ask me to pay. The call feature says I got to pay that 9 million back before I can do anything else.
Right.
Or
right.
Is that what the call feature?
Yeah.
Okay.
And maybe a penalty on top of that. But it's obviously going to cost you more if in any, it's 0% at this point, subject to the market. Anything going through VPSA is going to cost you more interest-wise, obviously. Maybe lower payment,
right,
annually, cash flow-wise.
And that's basically the choice I have. Is
that's right.
I got 0%, but I got a really big debt service.
That's right.
Or I could take 3% over 30 years, which is what I'm used to, and have like a $200,000 debt service payment.
Right. And I think, just do your number real quick.
But if you can make that really creative part where I can borrow it now, pay them 10% in the next 5 years, and then 5 years from now borrow from somebody else at the lower rate in a longer term.
Yeah, you're
sweet. At a low rate.
At a low rate.
Yeah.
VPSA. You're 15 years at 10,150, 676,000, which is basically 2 pennies on the tax rate if you just did a level like that.
Okay.
It's another way to think about it.
Well, okay. I'm not sure I like that last analogy, but I understand what you're saying. Thank you.
Just trying to equate it.
Okay. Thank you.
I guess my thoughts are too is the fact that if we wanted to commit to a debt service per year, not up to the total amount of $600,000 or $800,000, we could certainly commit to that and put that money in an interest-bearing account. We've had to pay $203,000 up front for 5 years in order to meet our obligations, but the rest of it could be in an interest-bearing account if we committed to this project, and it would offset.
But I'm not sure I understand what you're saying.
Well, what I'm saying is, let's say we say that we're going to commit to $500,000 a year to pay this off. It's
right.
No interest, okay? So it doesn't necessarily do you any good to pay off more than 10% the first 5 years, because that is your minimum.
Right.
But you commit to $500,000, you set the other $300,000 into an account and draw interest on that money that you've committed to pay for this project.
Well,
so you're trying to multiply the difference between 500 and 200 and take that 300,000 and get interest off of it.
Absolutely.
And then come back around.
Well, if you're going to go ahead and commit dollars today toward it, then I would recommend you put in that every year, because what you actually are putting it into an interest-bearing account. It's going to be held by a trustee on behalf of the bondholders, and it's going to earn interest in your favor.
At the same amount that Beth could invest it and get it?
Basically.
Okay.
Maybe even better,
Probably
because it's going to be a bigger lot. Because it's not going to be just you, it's going to be the other borrowers too. All that money's going to go into the same interest-bearing account, earning interest on your behalf. So what happens is that last payment, they're not sure yet whether they're going to give you credit each year for the interest, and so that instead of paying, let's say it's $500,000 as your payment, they may send the bill to Fran and Beth and say you actually only owe $475 this year because you had $25,000 of interest.
I got you.
I'm not sure if they're going to do that annually, or maybe on the 15th year, instead of paying the full $500,000 back, if you've earned $200,000, you maybe only pay $3. They haven't really said how they were going to do that yet.
Okay.
They thought they were going to do it over time after a couple of years.
Gotcha. Jeff, you had a question?
Yeah, so payment, if, in theory, if we were to get this and be approved, the money would start in 2010?
I believe it starts in 2011. I think the first payment's going to be a year from now, because the issue they're doing right now won't close until November
Of this year or next
of
year?
this year, and I think it's just an annual payment rather than twice a year. So the payment would happen a year from now, which is in fiscal 11. Now, your issue, I'm not sure how fast this is going to be pulled together. The applications are due November 11th. I know they tried to get this first one going at the end of August, and here we are in October and still not there. I suspect it may be January before this thing actually is marketed, which means it may be it's still going to fall in 2011, your first payment, is my guess.
And I guess my other concern is that we have principal payments as well as interest that start in 2011 also on other money that we've rolled
That's
forward.
true.
So the bite isn't just this, it's this plus whatever we've rolled forward.
That is correct.
And I guess what I'd like to see is what that increase would be also. Because it wouldn't be just, even if we did the level funding of $500,000.
It's going to be this on top of, that's
It
right.
would, yeah, a good bit on top of that as well. I just want to compare, it's not one thing, it's the accumulation of things that I think is what I'm looking at.
That's correct.
The locker room upgrades. What does that mean?
Yes, sir. Locker room upgrades are replacing all the plumbing fixtures in the facility, the toilets, the lavatories, the showers. Showers are in fairly poor condition. We also have to do some under-slab plumbing work, so the floors will have to be coming up and new tile will have to be put down. Lockers will have to be replaced and those types of things. So it's fairly extensive.
Any other questions?
Now, I mean, where do we go next? We apply for the grant, and if we receive it, I mean, that's the probability of that. Do we have any idea of?
No, we really do not. You know, there's going to be a lot of other school systems applying for this money, too.
Right. And how soon do they expect that we'd hear? I mean, we got a lot of CIPs to look at.
Just like Mr. Rogers shared, Courtney shared, we're sitting here, you know, when they did the first one, everybody expected the money, and we waited and waited and waited, and it took 3 to 4 months. We don't know how quick. We don't know if this governor will wait and leave it for the next, or if there's a timeline set. I haven't seen anything on when they're going to commit to this.
Right. It's just, you know, it's one of several challenges. We've got to look at our CIPs because this is about a penny to the real estate for an annual debt service.
It's two.
Excuse me.
Well, we were hoping that, you know, if with the board approval and your approval, and since we already were into the study, because these are supposed to be pretty shovel-ready, and this one can be very rapidly because of the feasibility study and the low-interest money, we thought, let's at least bring it to you. It's an option that's available, you know, and, you know, we're still moving forward with finishing the feasibility study on at least the Bowling Green area, and this high school for the rest. But we thought, we'll put it out here because we need approval of the boards to move this thing forward.
Thank you.
So if the board says, yeah, go ahead with the project, go ahead with the application for the grant, or the low interest loan, and you award it, then we're basically committed to that with this vote, or would it take another vote by the board to?
I believe, according to the application, that since supervisors have to approve it, the school board has to approve it, that you are making a commitment to repayment.
Even if they was to come back and say, we're not going to give you the entire, we're not going to award you the entire $9.5 million or $10 million, we're only going to award you $5 million.
You would only be responsible for what
I know, would you still be committed?
Right.
Because, I may not have a problem with doing all of these things that you're wanting to do here, and the projects that we've talked about before, most of them are, but I'm not sure that I would be willing to go with just pick and choose out of these projects as to what we were going to do and what we weren't going to do.
My concern is with a vote tonight is that, again, my question to Mr. Rogers about what is our debt service increase in 2011 with what we've refinanced? And I guess we're looking at 2 cents with this. What does that mean to us? And I really need to see that number before I can make any sort of decision.
And one other question, Courtney. How would this additional borrowing through the stimulus program, how does that impact our overall borrowing ratings or capacity?
Okay. And on the answer, that we're talking about two separate things here. I think Mr. Seeley's talking about cash flow, which we've always talked about as debt affordability, coming up with the funds to pay it. And I think your question is capacity, which is the credit side. And before I go there, I think part of the issue, and this just came to me late last week, and I was away yesterday on a personal day, so I've not had a chance to get up to speed on everything. So we may have to come back to your question, but I know these gentlemen have a deadline. November 11th is the deadline, and I don't think you meet again before that deadline. But I think you can still pull, I think if you put the application in, we can still tell the state, you know, we can pull out later. So keep that. If you put the application in on the 11th, I think you can still pull out later.
Okay.
Because I know the clients that I have in the current program, the numbers have been moving. We've been adding and subtracting dollars as we went. So if there is an inkling to get in the program, you might want to put your name in the hat, but you can always move the number around down to 0 if you had to. But let me go to your question, Mr. Akers, on debt capacity, which is looking at the looking at two different ratios I look at, and we did look at that the last day or so. I had an analyst put the numbers together for me quickly. Debt, total debt outstanding divided by assessed value. That's one of the areas we look at, and the number that I would recommend using as a target, because I know that's something we need to come back and talk about our fiscal policies at some point and updating those, is 4% of assessed value. And right now, with just general fund and school debt, not counting utilities, we are at 2.1% in that ballpark. When you add utilities, because they're not self-supporting right now, we add those in, they're at 2.8. So you're still below that 4% guideline target that I would use, or I would recommend using. The other guideline we look at is the amount of debt service in a year, annual debt service, divided by your total budget on a percentage basis. And typically we would use a target not to exceed 12%. And right now you're at 10% with just the general government and schools out in 2013. That's the year, that's our max year. That's where that debt service pops up in 2013 in terms of cash flow. And when you do the utilities, we're actually at 14%. Again, this is because we've restructured the debt out and it pops up in 2013. So we're actually a little bit above that out there in 2013. That's another reason why we want to get that utility debt self-supporting, because then we don't count it anymore and we're back to 10% and we actually have capacity. When I looked at how many dollars could you borrow based on a 20-year borrowing and say like a 5.5% tax interest rate, excuse me. When I look at just the general government side, the number is about $23 million in terms of that capacity, based on if we could get the utility self-supporting. So there's some capacity there, and of course the capacity is different on something like this, which is 0%, versus something that if we were going to borrow that same $10 million at 4 or 5% in the open market. So this does help being able to borrow it like this when we look at especially that debt service to expenditure number. So.
Could you, when you come back to us on the 12th, and I'm not sure what the board's going to do about voting on it tonight, but come back on the 12th, tell us, let's just say we had to go at another 12 months for this $9.5 million or $10 million at an interest rate of 5% and what have you. Let us know over a 20-year period, which is normally what our debt repayment plan would be. Tell us what the monthly or yearly cost would be.
What it would look like.
For
We can do that.
amount of money.
We can line that
versus
up.
what we would have to pay back here.
We can line that up versus our actual outstanding payments right now.
Okay. How does the board wish to move with this issue here? Keep in mind that we can pull back if it's something that the board finds that is not going to be in its best interest or the county's best interest in the long run.
And we still have the option to pull out based on what Courtney was saying.
I'm sorry?
Based on what Courtney was
Yes.
saying, we would still conceivably have the option to pull out.
Pull out, right.
Do we feel it's in our best interest to at least get in the game and then maybe decide to get out later?
We don't have, nothing is free in life. That's as simple as that, and we've all experienced that. This is probably as close to being free as you're going to get out of the federal government or any other government.
This ain't free.
Is getting zero.
This is not free either.
Well, it's not free.
Right.
It's free to use the money. Basically, you're using the money for free. Doesn't mean that you're getting the money for nothing, because you got to pay it back. And I understand that completely. But you are using it free for 15 years or 16 years. But Celia, you were going to have a comment?
The real question is, are we willing to say that if we do this, we're going to do at least a 2-cent tax increase to cover this? Because I know that we looked at 2011, there's another step up, and I don't remember how much it was. That's why I need Mr. Rogers to tell us. But we're looking at, and we all need to be aware that we're looking at least 2 cents to go up when we do this. If we're saying tonight that we're willing to look at this, then we're willing to say that we're willing to go at least 2 cents in the tax rate. Just so we're all clear, because there's no way around that.
Mr. Popowitz.
Yes. One of my concerns is this. I mean, Dr. Gill, we've talked about this. Another school in the next 6 to 10 years. Elementary school or middle school or some combination of. And we heard tonight that that costs right around $23 million about the capacity we have left in that school. We're assuming it's going to cost about that same amount of capacity. This bites into that. And my concern is, and I realize it's very little interest on this, but my concern is that we're going to basically borrow ourselves out of another school, a new school that we'll need in the future as well. And I think it's unfortunate timing, but I really can't see supporting this right now until we have a look at a better financial picture here in the county.
Thomas?
Well, my main concern, and Courtney heard it, is I don't want to be, I don't want the county to be in a position where they have to make a large debt service payment, which would be $500,000 or $600,000 a year. I like the just pay me 10% over 5 years, but sooner or later the other shoe drops. So my concern, and the only thing I really asked Courtney about this whole process was, after 5 years, can I refinance this like I do a lot of other projects into a more stable bill that I can basically handle from the county's perspective? So if I'm assured I can do that, and I'm also assured that I have the opportunity to pull out, then I see no need. I mean, we're really not risking anything by saying, yeah, we're going to go ahead, because we always have the option of saying, well, once we look at it, you know, like Mr. Popowitz said, maybe the financial future is not exactly what it is. Maybe Courtney comes back and says, you're locked into this for 15 years, and I don't feel good about it. So, I mean, knowing we say, yes, go ahead now, doesn't necessarily mean we're going to go ahead. I mean, we're just basically saying, yeah, we're going to fill out the application. You know, even if we get the job or we get the loan or whatever, we may not take it. So, I mean, we can move ahead. We just need to be honest about the financial future, which we all know is kind of iffy. But if Courtney says he'll let me refinance this, I'd feel a lot better. That's kind of where I am.
Sue, you have anything else to say?
I'm just, again, the long-term finance, it's a good deal because nobody's got money. And we're all looking at this as being a gift, and we're all knowing that a lot of localities won't be able to afford this either. And my fear is we're in that list of localities that can't afford to do this either. As much as we need to do it, we don't have the finances to do it. And reassessment's going to do some strange things to the county, and not necessarily to what everybody's paying, but our 4% may not be what the 4% is today. It may be a lesser value, which may change our ability to borrow. And I guess I'm looking at that and going, is it really 2 cents of real estate, or is it 2.5 cents after that? And my concern, again, and I think with Mr. Popowitz, is that I'm not sure we have the ability to pay this back.
Mr. Roselle?
Just looking at some quick numbers, between free money and interest money, it's about a savings of about $150,000 a year in interest. So, the free money is a good thing, but we just got to figure out how to even get the principal back. Just like Jeff just discussed, we got to make that up. And I certainly think we should move forward and let's try to get the grant and the stimulus option, and let's look where we are once we get it.
Well, let me say, from my standpoint, and I'm not chastising anybody. Please understand what I'm saying. But I'm disappointed that this board has been put in this predicament at the last minute to come in and to make a decision concerning borrowing of $9.5 million, whether we have to pay it back interest-free or no interest-free. You really have put this board in a pretty tough predicament in trying to decide what's best for the citizens and the young people of Caroline County. And I would trust that never happens again, because if it does, I think you're going to find that the board is going to lose trust in your side of the fence, and I don't want that to happen. I think we have established a good relationship between the two boards, and we're doing well, and I want to keep it in that direction. But you cannot expect for us to come in, for you to come in here and ask this board to make a $9.5 million decision in the spur of the moment. Having said that,
can I share one thing? Can I share one thing, Mr. Akers? We just received this probably here within the last week through Soup's memo.
That information's been out there for about 3 months. I saw it in the paper about 2 weeks ago, a little more.
We just got the Soup's memo releasing and requesting these grants on, it was dated on the 14th. I don't believe we got it until about like the 18th of October. And because truthfully, I respectfully agree with everything you're sharing, and I wholeheartedly agree with that. We've all been put in a quick position to move on this thing.
Okay. All right. Having said what I've said, I'm not going to commit in the long term. I will agree to go ahead and fill the application out so we get our names in the pot, and at least we will fulfill that requirement of the process. But when we come back on the 12th, or at a later date, once Courtney has gotten all information that we need to make an intelligent decision, I'm not going to sit here and promise you I'm going to still go with the direction that I have tonight. But I will agree, and if there's a motion on the floor to go ahead and approve, allow the school board to go ahead and submit the application for these stimulus funds, in a second we'll see how it goes. Is there a motion? Is there a motion to deny?
I'll make the motion, Mr. Chairman. We all understand that it's a worthwhile project. In the end, it comes down to the reality of all things in life: is can we afford to do it? What we're basically doing tonight is we're giving our approval, or I guess whatever concurrence that the school board could apply for this money. And we may, after further consideration, say we're not going to do it, although again, it's still a good project. But that's kind of where we are. We're just saying, fill out the application. We may not be able to do this. And that's what we all need to understand. But we want you to move ahead. Trust me, if it was free money, I'd be first in line. So I'll make a motion that we move forward with the application.
Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Mr. Thomas, seconded by Mr. Rozell, that we approve for the school board to go ahead and make application for the borrowing of $9.5 million or $10 million. What's the number, Courtney?
9.5.
What are you going to be asking for? 9.5 or 10? Not to exceed 10.2?
No, I thought he said that if it was 10, we would be paying back maybe.
Plus 175,000 for the underwriters.
150.
Yeah.
There was two numbers. There was a second project we were looking at, and that was the annex. It was at the school board office. All the heating units are out. Not all of them. Many of them are operationally down. There's no hot water heat. And we were looking at the roof because the roof is deteriorating very rapidly on the old Bowling Green High School. And that was where the extra $500,000 came in, was to request 9.5 for the high school, $500,000 for the annex. And it's only the front part of the annex that we were going to be working on. And that included roof replacement, barred unit replacement, and getting hot water heat in, because there is no hot water heat in that building. Also for the governor's school there, they need hot water for many of the projects and what they're doing. So that was the other $500,000 that was being requested in there.
And
Mr. Thomas,
Courtney said, he said 10,150,000.
We just added a 1.5%. That's roughly the number that they've been using on the issue we're doing right now for
So we'll
cost
say
of
not to
issuance.
exceed 10,150,000.
Is that your second? Is there discussion on the motion?
Two separate projects.
The only thing I would say, Courtney, in all of your other things that the board has asked you to do tonight, but you need to look at any innovative ideas that you have and show this board how that if we only pay back, if we don't pay anything back for the first 2 years, what is it going to cost us from there on out per year? Give us all the options that are out there and show us how it's going to impact.
Okay, because I think, yeah, we probably start with where we are now, look at that, and then
Yeah.
add this to it, and we can show you a couple different scenarios
Yep. Yep.
with the numbers.
Okay.
And I think, knowing what I just went through with the current QSAB program, probably tonight what you want to do is maybe talk about a construction amount, which would be the 10 million, not the 10,150,000. You're going to be asked if you're awarded dollars off the list, they're going to come back to you with an official bond ordinance that'll have a not to exceed dollar amount. That'll take into account our experience with this first issue, maybe going up to a size of maybe up to 10% larger, all that kind of, So you might want to just tonight put it in terms of construction dollars, and then we'll if successful, we'll have to come back to you with the bond ordinance or resolution.
$10 million. Any other discussion?
That's it.
All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay.
Nay.
Motion's carried 3 to 2. I think there is a revision to Ms. Popwitz, there was a nay.
There's a nay.
Mr. Thomas?
I voted aye.
Mr. Seeley?
Nay.
Mr. Rozell?
Aye.
I voted aye as well. All right, thank you. The board's
Thank
going to
you.
take a
Thank you very much.
10-minute recess.